Thanks, Mar, for the reading. God calls Isaiah as he said, "Here I am, send me, send us." Well, Bonhoeffer, German pastor and theologian involved in resistance movement against Hitler and Nazi, we know him. He was arrested and imprisoned in April 1943. Now in prison, after about 30 months later, he wrote a letter. He was writing to his friend, very close friend. And in this letter, Bonhoeffer was speaking of his sadness, knowing he's not going to be able to. He will not be able to attend the baptism. His friend's newborn son, like today, his friend's newborn son's baptism was there, but he can't attend because he was in prison. In that letter, he wrote like this. In my computer, it's kind of okay to read. I know the color's not quite, but let me please read that. I'm sorry about that. He says, "You know that I shall be with you in spirit. It's painful to me to be sure that improbable has happened and that I shall not be able to celebrate the day with you. But I have quite reconciled myself to it. I believe that nothing that happens to me is meaningless, and that is good for us. All that is should be so, even if it runs counter to our own wishes. As I see it, I'm here for some purpose, and I only hope I may fulfill it. In the light of great purpose, all our privations and disappointments are trivial." So that's the letter, and after that it published as the book. It says that. Now, 11 months after he wrote those words, on April 9th, 1945, Bonhoeffer was executed at the age of 39. But his word from prison will never be forgotten. "I believe that nothing that happens to me is meaningless. As I see it, I am here for some purpose, and I only hope I may fulfill it." Those words, I'm here for the purpose. I may be here for reason. They put before all of us the question for our lives. There's a question for all of us. So what is my purpose? Why are you here? What is your calling? To what task does God call you? Well, theologians, they call this question as perhaps vocation. The word vocation is rooted in Latin vocare. This word meaning voice and to call. Vocation is about voice and to call. Our vocation is our calling. It is the purpose that work God calls us to be in the world. It is doing what God calls us to be in our home, workplace, and community and church. But it is not always easy to hear that voice. Friedrich Buchner, one of theologians, also described this challenge and the need to discern our vocation this way. He says, "Our lives are full of voices calling us in all sorts of directions. Some of them the voices from inside, and some of them voices from outside. The world is full of people who seem to have listened to wrong voice and now engage in a life's work in which they find no pleasure. They find no purpose." It goes on. Well, we believe Bonhoeffer, he had a call. So what is yours? What is your call? That is an important question for us to ask, important question to discern the answer today as we gather. In order to answer that question, today's passage, Isaiah 6, I think that is teaching us a lot. This passage, this reading explores a divine revelation that shapes Isaiah's identity, shaped his mission and timeless nature of divine encounter with humanity. Well, in the beginning of this reading, Isaiah telling us that in the year of King Uzziah died. This king died. So who was King Uzziah? Who was this king? What do we know about him? Well, his story is an interesting one, very interesting. He became king of Judah after his father was assassinated. And he reigned, he governed as a king for 52 years. It's a long time, 52 years. He would have been the only king that many people in Isaiah's day, his day, had even known, because 52 years is a long time. And he was a good king. He was a good king. One of those a few kings we might remember. The Second Chronicle says, Uzziah, he did what was right in the sight of the Lord. But that is only until his pride leading to him his downfall. By the verse 16 of that chapter, but after Uzziah became powerful, his pride led him to his downfall. His pride was leading him to enter the temple without proper humility before God. Then Lord immediately struck him with leprosy, the skin disease, his illness, sickness. Consequence of his pride was leading to anxiety and uncertainty for everyone throughout Judah. And to make matter even worse, the country of Assyria was becoming very powerful and was threatening to conquer the country at that point. So you see some threatening coming in. You see uncertainty. In the midst of all challenges, uncertainty and anxiety, what did prophet Isaiah did? What did he do? Amongst of these challenges, what did prophet do? We read from the Bible that he went to the temple. He went to the temple to pray and to worship God. Isaiah went to the temple to be reminded of the one singular truth that would accompany him in all his days. To be reminded that the Lord was on his throne. He is on his throne. Kings come and go. Threats to our nation and our world come and go. But through it all, through everything, God is faithful. And the Lord is on his throne. And if that was true for Isaiah, it is no less true for us. It is more true for us this morning. In the midst of whatever is happening in our lives, in your lives, my life, in a world around us, we come to this place, the house of Lord, to be reminded of this same singular truth, the most powerful, most important truth that we will ever know, that the Lord is on his throne. God is in charge of this world, always has been and always will be. Now while the prophet was praying, he sees the Lord sitting on a throne with seraph in attendance above him. And one of these seraph called to one another saying, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. Well, we may be wondering what this seraph is. I don't even know that I can pronounce this correctly. What seraph or seraphim, that's different way we read from the Bible. Seraphim, the best we can call, they are the typical heavenly being or typical angel. And along with seraphim, there are cherubim, the angels and archangels. And all of these heavenly beings, are worshiping the Lord on his throne long before Isaiah arrives at the temple. They have been worshiping God all day long. They are worshiping God long before we arrive the Sunday morning too. What we are doing now together, what God's people are always doing, which is joining with them, joining with all of God's heavenly beings in this eternal, timeless, endless worship service. So we are not alone. We are not alone in this world. We believe, as we say in the Creed, all that is seen and unseen, the very existence of these heavenly beings teaching us that it is not completely up to us, not up to us to solve all the problems of the world. It is God's word. It's His word. God is in charge. It is simply our privilege, our blessing, our responsibility to take part in God's mission in our own, maybe perhaps as a small way, and that is encouraging and that is humbling to know that. And Isaiah responds to this vision saying, "Woe to me, I'm lost, for I'm the man of unclean lips. I live among the people of unclean lips." Well, his first response to this incredible vision that he has is to confess. He was confessing that he is not worthy. He is not worthy to be in the presence of God. He is not worthy to receive this vision. He is a sinner and he is filled with the fear. And I think that should always be our first response when we enter the Lord's house to worship. But his vision does not end there. It's not finishing there. After he confesses his sin, his unworthiness, God forgives him and makes him worthy. Just as God forgives our sin at the start of every Sunday's worship service, and thankfully, not with live coal like touching our mouth. God does not do all us every time. Isaiah is forgiven. After he has confessed his sin and unworthiness, after God has forgiven him and declared him worthy, then, only then, God is asking this question to him. And in one way or another, God is asking us same question to us. Whom shall I send? Who will go before us? Whom shall I send? Who will go for us? And Isaiah heard God's call in the temple. Moses heard in the wilderness the calling. Samuel, Zechariah, Ezekiel, Jesus, Peter, and Paul, they all heard that divine calling. Then we might return to Bonhoeffer saying, Dietrich Bonhoeffer heard his call as well. He said, "I'm here for a purpose, and I only hope that I may fulfill that. May I fulfill that." 8 years before he died, Bonhoeffer has written this book called Course of Discipleship. You would know that. In this book, he asks, what does it mean to follow Jesus? What is it like to be following him? What does Jesus call us to do with our lives? His answer was that a life of discipleship. Life of discipleship. That involves dying to ourselves, dying to our own will to desire, and becoming alive to God's purpose and calling for us. The story of Bonhoeffer is so compelling because he lived what he had spoken, and for him, the call, divine call, finally leading to his own death. So will we go? Will you go? Our sense of call might not come from like dramatic vision, like Isaiah is reading today. It might happen in a quiet time away during a holiday or retreat. That call might happen to us while you're reading the book, during Bible study discussion, or experience of worship like this morning, or because of your friend says something to you. It might come from a quiet voice of the Spirit of God whispering within us. Unlike Isaiah or Bonhoeffer, for some of us, God's call is not so dramatic new life of extraordinary sacrifice. Rather, God's call is to live out our faith in our daily work, families and community. Our calling is to see what we do each day as what God is doing. Whatever you do, whether it's running your company or going to restaurant, renovation of a house, being a mother, teaching in a public school, wherever you are, it is important to see what you do as an expression of your faith. And that awareness changes the way we do our work and can transform a workplace, family, church, and community. Well, being a lighthouse church is one of our visions, and in line with that vision, Phil and I and us, we have been faithfully serving and leading ministry at St. Andrews over the last 18 months. And last Sunday, as I announced, we experienced something special. It was combined service between St. Andrews and St. Ives, two churches, nearly 70 people gathered together. And for like a small congregation for St. Andrews, it was a very special moment being with like that crowd. And the joy and the energy that filled the service continues through the morning tea, and that was truly uplifting. And we have already decided to hold another combined service March next year. That will be in the St. Andrews and St. Ives. People will be traveling to us. And people have been asking me, so what do you hope? What do you hope to achieve through this? What is your plan? What's your strategic direction? Well, honestly, I don't know yet. I don't have all the answers yet. But I do believe that this new relationship holds great potential for both congregation, and including that might be 1045 us or another small congregation up in North Shore. And of course, to see some tangible fruit, tangible outcome, we will need prayerful planning, intentional action, and those strategic plan. However, I am very hopeful. I am hopeful because I see the spirit of readiness, being ready in our people, a willingness. I see the willingness of people to step out beyond their age and beyond their physical health. In baptism, we are reminded that God's call is not limited by age or stage. It is about being sent. It is about living as witnesses, about shining His light into the world. So the voice always says, this voice always says, whom shall I send? Who will go? So can we say, here I am, send me. Here I am, send me. So will you go?